Quick disclaimer, the script for this video was written during the open beta of Checkmate Showdown in September 9th, so this game has been updated since the latest demo. So some points on the gameplay mechanics might not be totally accurate anymore, so just keep that in mind while you're watching this video. I'm a fighting game player at heart, but prior to picking up the stick, I had my hands on chess pieces. Though I competed in it, acted as a high school chess club president, and even wrote an academic paper on chess score valuations, I was far from a good player. And even more so now with how rusty I am, though I have been slowly improving again with how much I've been playing it on chess.com recently. Point is, this board game is something I've always had a tight connection with. But ever since I started to take fighting games more seriously, I've always made a bit of a joke that chess is one of the oldest fighting games. Though a bit in jest, I do think they share many similarities, and proudly proclaim myself as a bishop main, with fianchetto being one of my favorite strategies. So imagine my surprise when Checkmate Showdown, a fusion of chess and fighting games, was announced in April of 2023. I shared it with a couple friends at the time, hoping to get them on board, which was when I started to try out some alternatives, games that put a twist on chess prior to its release to pass the time. Though there are many chess parody games on Steam like 4D Chess or 5D Chess with multiverse time travel, there seem to only be a few that incorporate real-time action the way a fighting game does. Chessplosion is one of those, which is a game that's been in my wishlist for a hot minute now. I sadly haven't copped it yet, but this is already what I consider to be the closest to a chess fighting game at the time. That left only FPS Chess as the only other option for me to play. A free game on Steam that gives off a lot of May during a game jam vibes. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Whenever a piece tries to capture another, an FPS battle ensues, with each piece having different weapons and unique abilities. It's clearly designed in a way that the better chess pieces also have better abilities, which makes sense. First to take down the other's king wins. Though fun as a laugh, the game is undeniably janky. En passant in particular was something I noticed as not being available in the chess portions of the game, and I'm pretty sure castling is a bit wonky too. There's also very little incentive to be active on the offense, since it provides no advantage. You could have your attacking queen be taken out by a single unprotected pawn if you don't win the FPS match. Ultimately, the game favors FPS skills way more than chess, which isn't necessarily bad if you're just trying to have a fun time. It definitely doesn't seem very fit for competition though, which was sadly what I thought would be the case for Checkmate Showdown too, until I tried it for the first time during its open beta a while back, starting on September 9th. Though I was still interested, I wasn't following Checkmate Showdown that closely anymore after trying out FPS Chess, which made me miss the closed beta. I wasn't about to give up on the open beta when I saw the announcement on Twitter though. Despite my relatively low expectations, I was nonetheless excited to see what the folks at BadRez Games had to offer. First off, the presentation is quite clean. It's nothing crazy, but the overall aesthetic of the pieces, chessboard, stage, and UI is very consistent and good looking. Some of the animations were a little jank during the open beta, but with the newest demo at the time of uploading, they look a lot better now, with clean looking speed lines accompanying fast movements. For other user experience related aspects, it was limited during the open beta, with button mapping not being available. That too has been fixed in the newest demo, and with a functional training mode, I have very little to complain about. About the gameplay though, this is definitely the highlight of all fighting games and it's no exception here. And I can say that it's a surprisingly well thought out game that turned out much better than I expected. I think many would likely go into Checkmate Showdown expecting the same type of gameplay design as FPS Chesses, just having fighting game matches in place of FPS ones, which was the case for me too, but very thankfully this was not the case in a very good way. First off, the game handles chess intricacies like castling, en passant, and promotion very well. You can tell the developers put time into making sure the chess portion of the game was lacking in bugs. Though I had an instance where my opponent castled themselves into check, technically checkmate I guess. You can argue that's just due to how the game works, since kings don't technically lose even if they're in checkmate. Regardless, this part of the game is fine for me, which wasn't the case for FPS Chess. More importantly, however, is how the game handles matches. Remember that complaint I had about the attacker not having any advantages in FPS Chess? Checkmate Showdown's devs very clearly took that into consideration, since the attacker is the only player that can use supers in the resulting match. These can do around 30 to 50% of your health, and considering that they'll even refill during the pace of the match, serve as an invincible reversal, and are really easy to tag onto combos, this is genuinely a large incentive to be the one on the offensive. Personally, just this mechanic alone is enough to convince me that the game has solid design intentions. However, the devs go even further by rewarding players for defending their pieces properly. A basic strategy in chess is to make sure that your pieces are properly protected, whether on the defensive or the offensive. For example, if you capture a pawn with a bishop, it's not a smart move if that bishop would then be taken out by a knight that's protecting the pawn, unless there's another piece of yours that can then capture the knight afterwards if they choose to do so, and so on and so forth. The strategy now provides even more advantage by providing players with the protecting piece as an assist. This is such a genius design decision that I could honestly gush about it for a solid 10 minutes or so, but I'll save that for later. We've covered pretty much everything regarding the chess portion of the game, so let's get to what everyone is actually excited for, the fighting. This game mostly boils down to a 3-button fighter. There's A, B, and special buttons. A essentially is your light and B is your heavy attack. Both buttons usually have auto combos and you can go from A to B. Specials are done by pressing the special button and cost 1 special gauge out of 3, which slowly refills. Holding forward or down directions while inputting provide different attacks. None of the cinematic hits are cancelable into specials, which are usually the last hit of auto combos and 6B command normals. It sounds complex, but it's actually pretty straightforward. You can also throw by pressing both A and B, or with a macro, of which there is only a back version of, and there are also separate inputs for super and assist if you need them. Both players also have burst to get out of combos, and both have a grounded and air dash, which also has a dedicated button like Guilty Gear Strive for additional mobility. There are no highs and lows, meaning defending is just as easy as holding back. You fight until someone is knocked out or time runs out, in which case the winner is the player with more health. The piece's health is then preserved, and if they ever re-enter a battle, they will only have that much health at round start. Pawns are the only piece that aren't affected by the fighting game portion of Checkmate Showdown. If they capture or get captured, it plays just how chess normally would. Everyone else has an actual fighting game character counterpart, and if 2 pieces that aren't pawns interact, a fighting game match ensues. So basically, bishop, knight, rook, queen, and king are all unique characters with unique movesets, and they clearly and cleanly cover the many fighting game archetypes. Bishop is rushdown, knight is a zoner, rook is a grappler, while queen and king are more unique, which I'd classify as a mix of neutral and rushdown and subplay oriented respectively. Though they do have different tools, combos are so straightforward that it's easy to knowledge transfer from one character to another. From what I've tried, 5AA into 5B into special is a very universal and easy B&B. Special can be replaced by 5BB if you don't have any special meter, and by super if you'd like to use it. Since most characters also have a special move that extends combos, you can very easily loop the B&B until you run out of special gauge. This is by far one of the easiest fighting games I've ever played if we only look at this portion. To some, that last statement might not seem like a good remark, and though I digress, it's not just due to personal preference that I have this opinion, it's due to the context of chess it's in. When Checkmate Showdown was revealed, many players, including myself, believed that the fighting game portion would matter significantly more than the chess aspect. If it was anything like FPS chess, even a godlike chess player would barely be able to do anything against an absolute newcomer, as long as that newcomer could beat them in first-person shooters. If Daigo Umaharu was playing this game against Magnus Carlsen, I would definitely be betting for Daigo's victory. And though that admittedly hasn't changed, I can say with certainty that chess skill matters a lot more in this game, with how offensive players that carefully protect their pieces receive an advantage, but also the ease of use of characters helps tremendously. With how universal combos are, fighting game skill matters a lot less. How easily transferable skills are from one character to another also makes perfect sense in a game like chess, since you're forced to use every piece. But even so, players will most certainly still have character preferences, which is where Checkmate Showdown starts to shine in its own unique light, distinct from the 2 types of games it's inspired from. Unlike chess, there is much less of a clear-cut decision. When previously you'd only need to ensure that you'd have the better position after launching an offense, now you need to take characters into consideration as well. Is the piece you're attacking with one you're confident using? Are you good at the matchup against a piece your opponent has? Maybe you should wait to attack until you have a piece defending your attacker so that you'll get an assist. If you don't attack, are you confident that you can win the match if your opponent chooses to attack instead, which will give them the advantage of having a super instead of you? There are even deeper layers since pieces retain the amount of health they have, so there are many instances where you can't confidently take out another piece since your own can't live through the match. Perhaps you're even willing to sacrifice a piece or two if it means lowering your opponent's piece's health, which is greatly relevant against their king, whose death will result in your victory. Sometimes you may even choose to promote a pawn into something other than a queen or knight due to character preference. What's optimal is a lot more gray compared to regular chess, which is exactly what fighting games are all about. Simultaneously, fighting game fundamentals aren't enough to carry you to victory due to the large in-game advantages chess fundamentals provide. Unlike FPS chess, where one genre's skill is clearly emphasized over the other, Checkmate Showdown strikes a much better balance, properly rewarding players for having experience in both chess and fighting games, and using aspects of each to provide a unique gameplay experience found in neither of the games they're based on. On top of all of this, both sides of the game are accessible. the fighting game portion makes chess mistakes more forgiving, while the fighting game itself is very easy to pick up, which means fans of one genre can easily play the game and enjoy the other. It's an understatement to say Checkmate Showdown exceeded my expectations. The gameplay is so incredibly well crafted that I'm still shocked at its quality. The few gripes I had were mostly fixed with the newest demo build, though I do have some personal design preferences such as nerfing bursts, which recharge very quickly and can even be used during opponent supers, or even better, combining them with supers to share a resource so that attackers can get an even larger advantage, which rewards better chess play, while also making super and burst a more interesting resource due to requiring players to make a decision between the two, resulting in a hopefully more in-depth fighting game as well. As a fighting game player that's incredibly interested in the niche and indie scene, and has played many titles like Tough Love Arena, The Duelists of Eden Beta, and now Checkmate Showdown, it's incredibly rare to see this sort of innovation of combining a different genre, one that's allowed through its premise, which thankfully is executed very well. This is something I'd love to see more from other indie devs, which has technically been done by games like God of Rock, but it's something I sadly don't envision happening frequently. There's little justification to create a separate mini-game portion for a fighting game that constitutes a large role in its matches. Just look at how much Lil Wayne's install super in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus was memed when it vaguely resembled one. And though I'd usually agree, this game has led me to think that this type of thinking is reductive, after seeing just how smartly Checkmate Showdown's chess aspects blend into and complement the fights. Nevertheless, the FGC at large likely won't think so it's not something I expect to see often. Though this video is essentially a review of my experience, my intention is more so to investigate the design philosophies behind Checkmate Showdown rather than providing a should you buy answer. But if that's what you're looking for, this was something I initially felt hesitant on buying due to my lack of faith in a large player base. But after both my interest in the game, in addition to the large amount of demo downloads, this is now something I plan to buy on launch. Gameplay-wise, this is by far one of the most cleverly designed fighting games I've experienced, and though it is partially due to having the established game of chess to rely upon, something like this nevertheless wouldn't have been achieved without the talents and insights at BadRez. This beautiful union of chess and fighting games strikes a balance that is nothing less than a miracle, and is one I'm eagerly going to play as an enjoyer of both. Maybe this is what pro players mean when they say that 100% Orange Juice is a peak fighting game. Maybe I need to finally boot that game up too. Hey everyone, BoomGuy2 here. Thanks for watching the video. This was meant to be uploaded a lot sooner, which you can probably tell with the large amounts of older beta footage that was used. But with me uploading it this late, I guess it means you don't even need to wait 2 weeks until you get to try out the game for yourself. So good for you, I guess. But I actually just started my first full-time job. It's really exciting, but it also means less free time to work on videos like these. And in addition to this, I also have some other creative endeavors that I may or may not show on this channel in the future. That I want to focus on too, meaning I likely won't upload too frequently, though I guess that was already the case anyway. But regardless, I do still have video ideas that I'd like to focus on. In particular, I'd like to take a focus on theory crafting. Making fighting game shorts and guides is fun and all, but fighting game design theory is ultimately what I'm the most passionate about, which I've showcased a little bit in this video. So you can expect more of this type of content going forward in this channel's future. So please like and sub if you've enjoyed this video for more content eventually like this. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.